And we're live. We're having a few little technical difficulties tonight, but hopefully we will get over it. So for a start, the reason I paused there is I couldn't see myself. If you are listening live and you're in the comments section, do let us know if somebody doesn't appear. I see it now, but let me know, people. That's what's going to be like tonight. But welcome anyway to the Sports Therapy Association podcast, episode 211. My name is Matt Phillips, creator of RunChatLive.com. And as always, this episode is being recorded live on the Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel and Facebook page. If you are listening to the podcast, then thank you very much. Do please leave a review if you enjoy it. And if you've joined us live, then fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us live. Do feel free to ask our questions, our guest questions, particularly tonight. There's going to be loads of questions I'm sure you want to ask. Yeah. Right, so very shortly in this episode entitled The Limb-itless Expedition, Conquering the Himalayas, I will be joined by special guests, Armed Forces veterans Rich Davies and Rich Potter, plus their sports therapist Carla Bickerstaff and massage therapist Jenny Lane. First of all, as always, I just want to give a huge thank you to last week's guest, who was the one and only Michelle Lyons in episode 210. That was Musculoskeletal Health and Menopause, New Research. Michelle Lyons is a wonderful women's health physio and creator of CelebrateMovieEbity.com. Some of you may have heard her previous episodes and even seen her last year at Therapy Expo. She will be joining us again at this year's Therapy Expo in the STA Theatre on day one, which will be November the 27th. Which I do hope that listeners, those of you who are able to come or umming and ahhing about it, are in the process of sorting it now, as you do only have 86 days. And yes, I will be counting it down every week as we broadcast this live podcast. So yeah, just sort out, like we said in the episodes 2 weeks ago, think about it now. If you haven't got a ticket, do it. Sort out accommodation maybe for staying for 2 days, travel, make adjustments for it in your budget so you know, so it doesn't hit you suddenly. And because it'll be lovely to see you there. We're really looking forward to it. So back to tonight, episode 211, The Limb-itless Expedition, Conquering the Himalayas, with special guests, like I said, Armed Forces veterans Rich Davies and Rich Potter, plus their sports therapist Carla Bickerstaff and massage therapist Jenny Lane. Before I bring them up, please note there is a Just Giving page associated with this episode. And I'm really keen, hopefully, for you guys to maybe, if you listen to the podcast, then go and just drop a little bit of money on it, please. It's a fantastic cause. And as we listen to our guests, I'm sure you'll be thinking, actually, this is a really, really good cause, and I want to give some money for it. I will put the link in the comments. It's on the post as well. There's a couple of them there. Either one will obviously do. There's Rich Potter's Just Giving page, which is raising money for BLESMA, which is the Limbless Veterans charity. And then also we have Rich Davies page, which is Amputees World Record Trek for the Royal British Legion, raising money for the Royal British Legion. So either of those will do. In fact, if you're watching the podcast, you can see now that Rich's amount is a little bit lower there. I don't know what that's all about. I'm sure it'll become evident as we start talking to them. But yeah, so jump in there and please donate, people. It's the same as always, isn't it? If everyone gives a little bit, it can make a huge difference. And I will be bringing that up during the show. If you listen to the podcast, you can't see the images I'm showing on the screen. But if you like, you can stop this podcast now, go to YouTube or go to the sta.co.uk and you'll be able to see the video of the episode there. Right. With that all said and done, I'm hoping that I will now be able to bring up my guests in full glory with their cameras working. I'm not totally convinced at the moment because I'm seeing a few blanks below me. But hopefully we can as we start this episode 211, The Limb-itless Expedition, Conquering the Himalayas. Right, I'm hoping that now, ironically, I can see Carla. Welcome. Let's bring you up first of all because I can see you on cam. How you doing, Carla? There's been technical difficulties from the beginning because now you're here. I can't see anybody else, but I'm going to bring them up and see if other people can see them. Let's try and bring up Rich Davies, who will be referred to as Dickie from now on, so he's not confused with the other Rich. I can't see Rich. Can you see Rich, Carla?
No.
No, I can't see Rich. Let's try and get Rich to join again. I'm going to chop you out, Rich, just in case you're wondering where you've disappeared to. I'm going to try and bring up Rich Potter. It's going to be one of those nights, I think. I can't see either. So I'm going to make him leave. Hope you can hear me. I'm not suddenly throwing you out. And Jenny, guess what? You've disappeared as well. So let's give it to Jenny. I hope they come and join us. Fingers crossed. I don't know what's going on tonight, people. Like I say in the comments, if I'm bringing up somebody or talking to somebody you can't see, then let me know. Obviously, I will edit this all for the podcast, so no one will ever know about it. If you are listening live, then you can bring up your question onto the screen. Look, here's Johnny Ball saying, "Big up the two Dicks and the legend that is Carla." Okay, Johnny Ball. There you go. You know Johnny. I do hope you do know Johnny, Carla.
Yes, I do know Johnny.
So while the other guests join us, Rich Potter's just sorting out his camera, as is Dickie, who I've been told to refer to from now on. This all started a while back, didn't it, when we were talking about therapy for swimmers?
Yes.
Which is very exciting, because it's first of all, I've got to give thanks to you and Jenny for introducing me to the two Dicks, which I'm going to get used to saying that. So thank you for introducing them to me, and thanks for making this show possible.
No, anytime.
It's great. Right, so I can see Rich Potter's appeared. Let's bring up Rich Potter. Rich Potter, everyone can see you. Say something so my heart can stop pounding. Let's take him off mute. There we go. How you doing, Rich?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yes. I'm getting better by the second. Ask me again in two. Let's bring up Jenny. 2 seconds. I'm bringing up Jenny Lane. Hey, Jenny, how you doing?
Hiya, I'm good.
Yay, so far so good. Right, last and by no means least, if I scroll along to the bottom, it's going to be perfect. Let's bring up
the second
Davies, aka Dickie, the second Dick, whatever you want to do with that. Hey, Dickie, how you doing?
Evening.
All good here. Yes, we're all here. It's fine.
The team made it.
I can edit the podcast. This is what joining live. This is why I know you people join live, because you love to see the true scenes before it's edited for the podcast. So thank you. Just in the comments, let me know if you can see everybody. If you're with the comments, I'd love to see that. David, you seem to have a few fans here, Carla. What's going on? David James Moncrief has said, "Evening, old Carla and her wonder hands." Okay, but then David has got compliments as well for Rich, loving the new hair. Rich, what is he referring to? Is it the eyebrow? Or is it the hair on top? I'm not sure.
Oh, it's the Irish Ken doll.
The hair on top is a midlife crisis when you can't afford the Porsche.
There you go. Well, at least he's honest. If you're listening to the podcast, I'd probably recommend you stay listening to the podcast. Normally I'd say come along to YouTube, but yeah, enjoy the podcast and then afterwards maybe go to YouTube. And I'm glad to see that Dickie aka Rich Davies has not shaved off his moustache, as we saw in the advert. It's staying, is it, Dickie? Is that
yeah? If we raise 50,000 for each charity, then there's a good chance we might have a complete reset.
Oh, seriously? I loved that advert with you, though. It makes me feel naked. I don't like it.
Do you know what? It took a lot of convincing to get the wife to allow me to keep it. And when last time I took it off, she hated it. So it's here to stay for the time being.
Hey, you haven't got to explain that to me. It's with me. It's my beard, my life, and my wife, and I just have to find a mixture. So yeah, I totally understand that.
I get it.
Man. I share you. I'm there. Right. So thank you. I'm so glad we are all together. I thought to start off, we would go headfirst into what this expedition is about, because we had a little chat off air, and I think it's hard to get the truth behind the Snowman Trek out in words without like lots of images. But maybe we could have a chat with you, Rich Potter and Dickie, about what this Snowman Trek involves, so people can get an idea of the big challenge you're taking on.
You go first, Rich.
Sure, thank you, Dickie. So the Snowman Trek is commonly referred to as the most difficult trek in the world, or the Everest of treks. The full Snowman Trek is a 367-kilometer route, around 11 mountain passes, averaging about 5,000 meters each. We will get to 5,900 meters at the peak, and we will be wild camping every night for 35 nights. So if you want to see two blokes in a tent at 5,500 meters, then follow us on Instagram, because there's going to be some good footage.
I love the way you've missed out one little kind of detail there. It's not just two blokes in a tent, is it? It's and you said footage, which is, I'm sure that pun wasn't intended, but can you let our listeners know a little bit more about what isn't going to be in the tent with both of you?
Well, we're certainly hoping no yaks.
No, they won't be yaks. So for those who aren't aware, myself and Dickie are amputees. We're both below the knee amputees on the left leg. The snowman trek is incredibly challenging for people with 2 legs, let alone people with 1, and we would generally expend about 60 to 70% more energy on a daily basis than somebody with 2 legs. So I hope that just puts into perspective, aside from all the big numbers and altitudes, how difficult this is going to be for the 2 of us.
For sure, that's exactly what I wanted, and it's going to be in essence, it's going to be a world record if you complete it. He said, never been done.
Yeah,
before,
absolutely. No, so we've done a couple of background checks, research into the actual snowman trek itself, and speaking to our guides. And as far as I'm aware, we're the first disabled people to even attempt it, let alone being the first amputees.
Simple question: why?
Why not? No,
because it's there.
It's there, and it hasn't been done. You know, every world record started somewhere, and after Invictus, we knew there was going to be a slump. So what do? You know, we started brainstorming and came upon the snowman trek. Has any disabled person ever done it? No. So let's do it. And the whole point is, if we can inspire and motivate other people with disabilities, limb loss, limb difference, anything like that, to take on their own challenges, regardless of the size. I'm not going to tell you to go and climb Everest. I'm not going to say do the snowman trek. For some people, that's getting out of bed that morning. And if they can conquer that challenge, then, you know, that's a win for that day. And then you just look for the next one. And you just keep setting that bar slightly higher each time.
Fantastic. I'd love to hear or see the sheet of paper with some of the ideas you disregarded in your choice. Was there any other things you were considering before you finally decided on this one?
So just to add a bit more meat on the bones, everyone talked about the post-game slump after the Invictus Games. And when you're going through the training and going through the competing, you don't even think about it. You don't care about it because it's in the future. And then it arrives and it hits you like a ton of bricks in the face. It is the most difficult feeling to express to you tonight. But we crashed, you know, some more than others. And Dickie and I were kind of scrambling for something to give us a little bit of direction and purpose, more importantly. And we had lots of ideas, such as TV shows, 2 middle-aged dicks on a bike where we would travel the world on a tandem, meeting other amputees. Any execs from ITV or BBC, if you're watching, hit us up, because the idea is still fresh and I still believe in it. And then we were talking about going to Costa Rica and doing various other coast-to-coast treks. But when someone offers you the opportunity to do the most difficult trek in the world, you don't turn it down, whether you've got 2 legs or not.
It's amazing. Great. If people want details on this and to have some more wordy explanations of what it involves, then you've got a few options. You can go along to the Just Giving pages, like I said before, and make sure the links go into the show notes for that. And also you can go along to the website. This is bringing a little screenshot because I know you people who join us live love a little bit of picture of the work there. That's actually a shot. Let's put that on the main screen. That's actually a shot, isn't it, of part of the peaks you're going to be walking across, isn't it?
Yeah, that's our acclimatization walk when we arrive in Bhutan. So that's the Tiger's Nest Monastery, a very famous monastery out in Bhutan. And that is, our warm-up day. And then the very next day, that is 5 to 6 hour warm-up day. And then we actually set off on the 7th of October for the official trek.
The warm-up day. Amazing. A trek that's going to cover about, if I remember correctly, 200 miles in less than 40 days. And with guides, as if, you know, they're obviously going to help make sure you go in the right direction. But
well, certainly hope so.
that's their job done. But what are some of the things which you are going to have to struggle with that people with 2 legs would not have to consider doing a challenge like this?
I think probably the most important thing is going to be your prosthetic leg. It's everyone just assumes, I assumed when I initially lost my leg, that you put on a prosthetic leg and you start running and you go to the Paralympics and everything is amazing. There are so many different permutations when it comes to prosthetics, about comfort, about fit, around different type of feet, so you can have heels that compress. We could talk about prosthetics for hours. I appreciate that's not the point, but the biggest barrier for us, the biggest challenge for us is absolutely going to be prosthetics. And we are so fortunate that there's a company called 𝐑𝐢𝐜𝐡 Orthopedics, who are a private prosthetics provider in the UK. They have agreed to sponsor us a leg each. So we've got this really new Gucci foot. We've got this incredible bespoke socket from our prosthesis, and we've had a couple of warm-up walks on it. And am I right in saying, Dickie, so far so good?
Yeah, touch wood, and I'm generally touching wood right now. No pun intended. I am not to be twisted anyway.
That's fine. Keep going.
Yeah, we can edit that bit out, maybe. But we are very fortunate. We have got some brilliant positists, and the legs are brilliant. And courtesy of 𝐸𝐸, as Rich mentioned, the foot it's an industry-leading foot, and we're going to give it a further testing out there.
Amazing. Do you? I'm just thinking. I was sitting down this afternoon thinking of questions. Listeners, I'm doing your job. I need you to ask questions and don't be. I think one of the things is not being embarrassed, and we'll get onto that when it comes to therapists working with you. I'm going to take great pleasure in talking to you, Carlo and Jenny, that there's still a certain level of taboo and not asking and talking about things, which I guess must make it uncomfortable for both the therapist and the client who has, for example, had a leg or arm or anything amputated. So please do ask questions. I want to ask, first thing comes to my head, do you take spares along with you?
Absolutely. Yes. Like I say, we're very fortunate that Dorset and 𝐸𝐸 are providing us with the hardware effectively for ourselves. But we are also taking a spare foot because if anything goes wrong, the socket cracks, the foot breaks. We even got pinch bolts which hold parts of a leg together. If they shear, we haven't got the tools to just be able to drill it out or anything. So it is down to your backup leg. And that's pretty much either going to be a choice of our running blades, which, believe it or not, unbelievably forgiving on quite rough terrain. And when your residual limbs getting tired, that nice bit of spring in it is a bit of a welcome relief. Or we'll just use our everyday foot with our hiking boots on.
Fantastic, yeah. Have you got a lot of faith then, Rich Potter, in the hardware, as you put it?
I've actually got a lot of faith in Dickie because he was very practical when he was serving in the forces. So he's basically said he's going to handle all the mechanical stuff and I'm going to handle the more soft tissue, dressings, blisters, that kind of thing. So it's a partnership that works quite well.
Excellent.
Yeah, no pressure on each other.
Lovely. That's really cool. It's good to have your roles defined before you leave on that journey. You're going to spend those 40 days together, presumably in a lot of discomfort for much of it. No, amazing. Right. So we've mentioned the Invictus Games a few times, and we want to get into that because that'll draw Carlo and Jenny into it, where they both had the pleasure of working with you. I think, first of all, maybe as a backstory to the Invictus Games, maybe we could start with you first, Dickie. What were the circumstances maybe of you losing the leg and then you discovering Invictus Games?
Yeah, so originally in 2019, I was deployed to Cyprus with RAF, and no judgment on my behalf for being Air Force, especially for the Army out there. But yeah, so I was out with the F-35 on his first overseas deployment, and unfortunately on day 3, I had a jet engine trailer towed into the back of my foot, collapsing it in on itself. I ended up with 11 breaks and fractures and destroyed the cartilage, and at the time we didn't realise the amount of nerve damage done. That then unfortunately developed into complex regional pain syndrome, and ultimately resulted in 2021 my bologna amputation. And yeah, it's quite a shocking moment where you're told you have to have an amputation. There's no other way about it. It's either continue living agonizing pain, and life was just grey beyond words. I was miserable. I missed out on family time, family events because I was constantly in pain. And I was 24/7. It just varied in intensity. And I'm sure Rich will attest to the similar issues he had. And anyone else who suffered with CRPS. And after the foot came off, that initial wake up from surgery, obviously feeling a bit groggy, that constant background pain was gone. And I was like, this is definitely the right decision to have gone with. And it was onwards and upwards from there. Started my rehabilitation. It took me about a year, literally just over a year, to go from taking my first steps on a prosthetic to running for the first time. And it was from there that I met Rachel Williamson. He was former Invictus captain from The Hague, and she was a member of staff at the time. And she told me, "Have you considered Invictus?" I said, "No, I didn't think I was broken enough." And yeah, the rest of it sort of became a bit of history, signed up, and incredibly I was selected. And again, I was still in shock that I even got that far.
And for people who aren't aware of Invictus, could you give us a brief rundown on their history and what they do?
Yeah, so Prince Harry, he came up with the idea for the Invictus Games to help wounded service personnel and veterans, either through injury in service or outside, to channel their recovery through sport. That started in 2014. First Games was, I believe, in London. And it's been growing since, with more nations joining. And it's been a great way for injured people, serving and veterans, to focus on, gives them a goal, especially when you've left service, you've been medically discharged. You're like, what do I do now? And because we've got that sort of mentality of I've got to have something to do, I've got to succeed, I've got to keep pushing. You get that sport, you find, whether you make the team or not, you get to try something new. And for all you know, for me, I'm now pursuing archery. I'm retired on swimming for the second time in my life. And others, it could be anything, right up to the winter sports coming up.
How much of an influence, coming from a military background, because I've read interviews and seen videos with both of you, and both of you mentioned, I think, words which meant basically the same thing, but saying that you are proud to get to represent your country once again. Is that something which is enhanced by coming from a military background? Because presumably you joined the military because you felt proud, you wanted to kind of like serve your country. Does that what Invicta helps with? You're able to put that badge on again and feel I'm actually doing something for my country again?
Yeah, you definitely feel like, the day after I officially left service was an official Team UK announcement. And so I got to put it on, broadcast across the nation. And you feel like you're serving your country again. A lot of people, once you leave, you sort of, where'd you go? What do you do? That for however long you've served, you've sort of been institutionalized. You've put that uniform on every day. You've been told what to do, and then it's taken away from you. Mm-hmm. So when you get that opportunity to put effectively a uniform on again and then serve your country in a different form, it was it was a very moving and emotional experience for myself particularly, and I know a few others.
To the extent that now you actually, I think I read you're considering Paralympics in Los Angeles.
It's very early days. I think it's early for me to try, but I'm certainly hoping on getting down the power pathway in archery. And the nice thing about power archery is I've got a long time to keep practicing, get better, and who knows, represent the UK or Great Britain at one of the future Paralympics. And again, I definitely think Los Angeles is a bit hopeful, but never say never. Stranger things have happened.
Well, I'm looking forward to that podcast episode already as we join you at the games. Yeah, that'd be great. You're going to come back and talk directly from Los Angeles, yeah, when that's happening?
Oh, if you have, it's absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much. That's good. We've got it booked in there. Right, fantastic. We'll come back to Invictus Games. I just want to hear maybe the same thing. Obviously, everyone's life and situation is very different, but Rich Potter, what were the circumstances for you?
So, Matt, I was very much living the dream. I was a troop commander getting paid too much money to play football every single week. And my wife told me for many years to stop playing football because I was too old. But you know what blokes are like, they don't like to listen. And one particular match, I got absolutely hammered in a 50-50 tackle as I was taking a shot, which resulted in me getting in my first ever ambulance, which seems a little bit overkill for a little football injury. Got to hospital, had all my scans and x-rays, and I was told that it was just a sprained ankle, which I guess is good because it meant I got to deploy to the Middle East, which was my dream. Had a great deployment, but the whole time I was out there, I was in huge amounts of pain, couldn't walk, couldn't deadlift, couldn't squat, couldn't do any sports. And obviously, if you can't do the physical stuff, it interferes with your mental health. So I eventually got back, I got posted to London and saw a doctor who said I had an osteochondral defect, an OCD. And apparently it's really easy surgery, 1 hour in and out. And he was absolutely correct. I had surgery in the morning. I was home that night. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I got rushed into A&E in Kingston Hospital with sepsis, only for the grace of my wife, who was awake and able to spot the signs of sepsis. Am I still sitting here today? And that just kind of dragged on for a couple of years, to be honest, Matt. It was like sepsis, osteomyelitis, talk of CRPS. There was never really a definitive answer. But I met a great surgeon in the NHS who said to me, what the hell are you doing? You're still in the army. Just take your leg off. And a couple of months later, it came off and I never looked back.
Amazing. Yeah, that is something which kind of stands out reading through your story. That word decided must make people go, whoa, hold on. Well, did I just say he decided to? And it's interesting. I saw something, an amazing video. A lot of sports professionals, physios and rehab specialists kind of made it clear to you that you weren't going to be able to run again and pursue the things you loved to do so much beforehand.
Yeah, they did, and I'm a bit of an anomaly. Traditionally, as a below the knee amputee, you would do 6 months at rehab at Headley Court or Stanford Hall, and then you would tap out to Civilian Street. Whereas for me, it was 3 years. It was 16 revision surgeries. It was countless admissions away from my wife. Obviously during COVID as well. So once you're there, you stay there for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and it just went on. And every single physiotherapist and every single doctor and consultant said, you will never run again. Your stump is too short. You're not designed to run. Go and find something else. Do cycling. And I reckon every single person listening today has been told at some point in their lives they can't do something. And very often that lights the fire in your belly. And that's what it did for me. And I kept trying to do the running criteria, which is the military test to enable you to get a running blade, compliments of the Ministry of Defense. And I kept failing the running criteria, except for a couple of months before I was out. I passed it, I got my blade, started running, and very fortunately, just like Rich, I got selected for Team UK for the Invictus Games.
Fantastic. And then went on, I'll just put this on full screen so people can see it if you have joined us live, went on to incredibly, must have been amazing this, there's a wonderful video, which I will put a link into the show notes, but ended up getting gold in 100 meters, was it?
Yes, it was 100 meters gold. That's the big sexy one, right? 100 meters, everyone loves that.
And there's an amazing video, which but talking about it, we're not going to do justice to it. I will put the link in there for people to look at, because you can see the emotion, everything as you're talking. It was a huge moment for you because your wife and son were there, I believe, and you kind of made this really poignant remark that it was all for them, basically.
Thanks, Matt. We adopted our little boy 3 years ago, who's just absolutely incredible, and he has in himself given me some purpose, which I desperately needed. And the Royal British Legion facilitated friends and family to come out to Germany with us for the games. So Ellie and Theo came across, and they, without getting too emotional, my wife kept me alive for the last 4 or 5 years. Not did she just save my life that night, but almost every single day as we go, she's just there, that support. And the fact that she's given me 7-8 weeks off from the family to go and do this crazy thing in Bhutan is probably testament enough to her graciousness and encouragement.
In the interview, I won't dwell on this for too long because you get me going, but in the interview you said how, I think you made it sounded like it was like practically waking up from the operation, but like looking at her and saying, one day I'm going to run again, I promise you. And yeah, you made that true. It just must have been huge.
I think the worst thing about that, Matt, was, and I didn't understand any of this at the time because I was on so much morphine, but it was 2 o'clock in the morning. She was 28 years old, wandering around a hospital in Kingston she had never been to, in the pitch black, having just been told her husband might not survive the night. I will never understand what she went through that night. So it means that whatever birthday or Christmas present she wants, generally she gets.
Right. So yeah, I mean, everybody's story regarding this sort of topic is huge, but it's I wanted to do that before we moved on to the Invictus Games, because now people will realize how much the Invictus Games can change lives, and also why you are raising money for the charities you are. Just to remind people again, if you listen to the podcast, if you're watching live, then hey, straight after this, that's what you need to do, is head along to the Just Giving pages and just donate some money. I'd say a little bit, but hey, go for a medium amount or a big chunk, because it's both charities are all about supporting people who are going through the tragedies and the hardship which we've talked about, and it really makes a massive difference. So we won't dwell on that anymore, but I would, even if you're listening to the podcast and it's still September, there's still time to check out the challenge. Go to the website and have a look at the Just Giving pages and help with the funding to change lives. So right, Carla and Jenny, thank you so much, Rich and Dickie, for sharing those stories. Carla and Jenny, so you go to work one day, Invictus Games, meet Rich and Dickie. There you go, I'll leave you to it. Had you worked with athletes with disabilities or amputations before, or were you really just thrown into it?
So we'd both actually done the World Para Swimming Championships in 2019. And I have done a lot of work in para swimming prior to this. But this was the first time that I was kind of thrown in with a huge variety of very different, sometimes very complex conditions. So it was kind of a a sort of see how you go with it, really. And I had to very quickly try and work with these people whose literal lives have been turned upside down and get them on board and wanting to engage with me, and wanting to work with me. And they effectively chose whether they wanted to work with me or whether they didn't. And that was kind of how it went, really.
And the sort of work you were providing physically, let's talk about the mental support and that aside, but on paper, what were you there to do?
So the first training camps basically was to offer any sort of soft tissue support, any sort of injury, I suppose sort of assessment, from a point of view of this is something additional to what they currently have as their disability potentially, with them trying out new sports and things like that. And then there was myself there and Jenny with soft tissue based, but then we also had physiotherapists on site as well, so we could refer between all of us if we needed to.
Excellent. Okay. And Jenny, so you were there, same sort of situation for you. You'd done a little bit of training before, you'd worked at the para swimming before, but did it feel like you were being thrown in the deep end the same way as Carla when you went to Invicta?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's you don't really realise the complexity of the issues that you're dealing with, and it's, you have to be really sensitive to not just concentrating on the soft tissue side of it all, but certainly the mental health side was way beyond anything that I'd expected, to be honest with you. And it was a real eye-opener, because that had a huge effect on how you treated them from a soft tissue point of view, or whether you did treat them. Sometimes some of the competitors would have excruciating cramp, but the last thing they needed was for you to go over and try and put any hands on them at all, even though you could have helped them psychologically. They just weren't in the right place for you to do that at that time. Some, again, it would be different from person to person, so some would be more open to it, but definitely not everybody. So yeah, it was difficult. And things that would normally work didn't necessarily work for some people. So people that I'd treated before and used a certain technique, it would work beautifully. But some of the guys, it just didn't. Some of my techniques didn't work on them in the same kind of way, and you had to adapt your approach and adapt the way that you were going to work. So yeah, it was definitely thinking outside the box. Definitely thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, for listeners who are soft tissue therapists themselves, and I think we talked about this on the last episode we did on therapy for swimmers. It's not easy to get this gig, is it? Because it's wonderful if you do want to do this and you want to, if you're a really empathetic person, you want to help these athletes. But there's only two of you who were there in terms of sports therapists or massage therapists, wasn't there?
Yes, yeah, there were.
Yeah, so it's something to work up to. But I think we talked in the last episode about what you can do if you are interested in working with athletes who have got disabilities of some form, and there is things you can do, because it does strike me as something where we've talked about this before, we are basically, if we are prepared to rub oil through the back of a hairy man and not get paid much for it, then there's a certain amount of empathy there, isn't it? You're not doing it for the money, or to brag about. I mean, it's because you want to help someone, you want that, oh my god, that feels so much good, you're amazing. That's what you kind of do it for, isn't it? It's the thanks at the end of the day. So
to be fair, Matt, I had actually come across an amputee just within my clinical experience anyway, who was non-military. He'd been Carla, I told you who it was earlier on, and I can't remember what sport it was. The cross.
He was a motocross.
Yeah, motocross. Thank you. And he'd ended up with an amputation due to an injury, I think, through motocross. And he had a similar sense of humour actually to the guys, in the fact that he was adapting his own foot and his and doing all sorts of different things, because he was a mechanic by trade. So he was sort of looking at it very from a mechanical kind of point of view. And yeah, so I'd experienced that, and we sort of worked together for a good 6 months to a year. just trying to help him get back to motocross, which was actually what he had kind of wanted to do. So
Fantastic.
it's possible. There's a possibility, you know, people are just going to walk into your clinic who have disabilities and who need help. So.
Oh, definitely. No, it's happened to me, and at the end of the day, anything outside of the norm is such a healthy thing to do. I mean, it's what makes you as a person, isn't it? When you meet people with different experiences, and that includes physically as well as kind of mental attitudes and things like that. So yeah. Moving over to Rich and Dickie, what was it like for you guys? Obviously, everyone's got different stages of mental health when they go to these games and having good days and bad days. But had you had soft tissue work from therapists before? Or was it a little bit strange for you with a, I suppose, what was then a stranger coming in and saying, "Oh, I can do this for you if you want"?
You take it, mate.
Thanks, Dickie. So I had 3 years at rehab, which is an awful long time. And I had lots of physiotherapists and lots of occupational therapists. And the physios were great, but it was more of a bee sting than anything else. So it was, you know, how to maximize the muscle in your remaining quad and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So I didn't really get much soft tissue stuff with the exception of scar massage. And because I had so many different scars, they would tether quite a lot. So I got lots of cupping and scar massage, which was brilliant. And then I had nothing for about a year and a half, and then turned up to Invictus and met Jenny and Carla, and it was like a revelation. It was like, oh my goodness, that kind of niggle that I've had for the last 2 years in my stump was all caused by some scar tissue in my hamstring. And, you know, Carla and Jenny were able to work that out. And all of a sudden I had no pain in my stump. And something as simple as, you know, a 30-minute rub or a 20-minute rub on my hamstring meant I could walk reasonably pain-free again, which was great.
That's fantastic. So for you, it was a case of, because I'm interested, obviously for the therapist, if they haven't seen, for anybody who hasn't seen somebody with an amputation, it's weird, isn't it? There's something missing. Our brains just don't compute it, you know, which is why on TV now, I think they're doing a really good job in more and more shows. They're having characters who are missing an arm or missing a leg, and they're normalizing it. So our brains just don't go, what the hell's going on there? So, but for a therapist, you know, I remember with a particular one person that I was looking after, when they turned over and they had no legs from above the knee, it was a bomb that went off, and they'd actually taken up Formula One motor racing or something. It was incredible. They told me a story of how sometimes they'd come off their bike, but their prosthetic limbs would stay on the bike, and they just laughed at the people who were watching this bike go around with the legs still on it and nobody else. But a great character. But I remember just taking a moment just to go, okay, my brain is doing like laps here because there's such a big chunk of this person missing. But I'm wondering on the other way around, are you sensing what the person who's about to lay their hands on you is feeling, or their body language? If you feel they're a bit apprehensive, do you expect them to be a little bit kind of inquisitive first if they haven't come across somebody with a stump, especially when it comes to touching? Because I've heard that I know through experience that what you expect to feel on a stump is very much different than what it actually is. So yeah, what's it like for you guys?
So my wife and I actually went away for a nice relaxing weekend, and got a couples massage. And the masseuse I had, she's never. I'm sounding too posh now, like that. Definitely not the case. It was a break she'd earned, so it was more of a treat for her. But the masseuse I had, she'd never had an amputee. So when she got down to massage the leg, she was like, asking lots of questions like, how does she go about it? I was like, I don't know. I've never sort of been down this sort of path. So she was mostly focused on the upper part of the leg, and just very sort of gentle, but she was very sort of cautious and apprehensive about, this is a new thing to her. So what does she do? And I'm more than, happy to sort of just crack on, do what you think is natural. There's no issues there. But yeah, you can tell with like Carla, Jenny, and other therapists, we've sort of worked with. You can tell they've dealt with people with various, injuries, limb loss and whatnot, because they'll simply just ask you a question, what you're comfortable with, but no amputation is exactly the same. Rich has got a shorter stump than I've got, so the anatomy of the end of his stump is going to be slightly different to mine. I've got a bit more calf muscle to work with, whereas he hasn't. So this is where obviously their expertise and just working with the patient or the client, that's the relationship you can build on it.
Fantastic. So So you don't necessarily, as the patient or client, feel super uncomfortable if you give the therapist some space and time to get used to if it's their first sort of time. You're happy with that, or do you think, oh, why didn't they just
Yeah, no.
somebody else?
No, it doesn't. Like I said, it doesn't bother me. Somebody's always going to be caught off guard by it, particularly obviously if it's first patient of theirs. So yeah, it's just give them that moment, let it sink in. Some people are absolutely fine with it and will just crack on. But if you can tell they're a bit uncertain, just talk to us. At the end of the day, we're still people at the end of the day, and if we're comfortable talking about it, we're going to guide you in the right direction.
Exactly, yeah, communication. I wanted to check as well, because both of you said a couple of times the word amputees, and I kind of read and was told at some stage that some people find that kind of derogatory because you're kind of just saying, oh yeah, I'm an amputee, as in that's what I am now. It's my definition, as opposed to a person who's had a limb amputated or something. But you guys are happy with I'm an amputee?
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. For me, yeah,
depends on the individual then.
Yeah, I think it's personal preference.
Perfect, fantastic. I'm looking for questions here. Let's scroll up. We did get a question here from Nikki Mansfield. Let's just bring that up onto the screen. Sorry I left you for so long, Nikki, with this question. I did see it appear. Nikki was interested, saying, so did all the CRPS symptoms disappear post-amputation? I think that was referring probably back to Rich Potter. Oh no, I think it was Rich David. I think it was Dickie actually. One of you said like within a certain period of time, all of the pain just disappeared.
Yeah, as soon as I came round, I said, and the anaesthetic wore off, that constant pain that was always there was gone. And you just left, obviously, with surgical pain. Obviously, they've just removed your foot. But yeah, it was just, you could almost feel that colour coming back in straight away. It was like, oh my God, that constant agonising, gnawing, sickening pain that's always there. It's to have it go for the first time in 2 years was just fantastic feeling.
Fantastic. Good question, Nikki. Gary Benson, founder of the STA, has just said, the STA was founded because I wanted to support people supporting injured persons. I'm ex-army, medically discharged in 92, had few reconstructions and titanium shoulder, but all now okay, thankfully. Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping that, there's a lot of common themes here about treating the individual in front of you as a person, talking to them regardless of what's going on. Remember, at the end of any injury or disability, there's a person at the end, and we've talked about this with regards to mental health and physical health. So I think it's one of those things where if you're a good therapist and you know the power of listening to people, then it all just falls into place. David James Moncrief says, you guys are amazing. I have so much respect for you both as friends. I know how much you're amazing wives and kids. Oh, come on now. Let's not start us all down this road, David. But we'll do it. Yeah. I know how much your amazing wives and kids have been rocks throughout your recovery. My question is, will they be able... let me just scroll this down a bit. Will they be able to fly out to meet you after the last leg, no pun intended, of this epic journey? Also, I can't wait to follow this journey and see who is the big spoon in the tent. Definitely a friend.
I'll be big spoon. 6'3", I'm definitely big spoon. Sorry, Rich.
I think with a tash like that, mate, you're always going to be big spoon.
Yeah, just call me Magnum.
Oh God.
So yeah, what's the plan? Are you getting family out at the end of this event, or it's a bit too far away, isn't it?
Unfortunately not, unless a millionaire is going to happily donate their private jet to fly the families out. As much as we'd love to. Yeah. As much as we'd love to have them out there, the flights alone are astronomical. So we just look forward to getting back and seeing them at the other end.
Fantastic.
To be fair, the last leg is officially, as of today, a couple of nights in a nice hotel in Delhi with a pool, where we will just be scouring the streets looking for the cheapest massage we can get. Official massage, I should say. Official massage.
Carlo and Jenny will have something to say about that.
Yeah.
Cheaper isn't always better, Dickie.
Absolutely not.
Carl and Jenny, I'm really interested then in the time we've got left to hear about some of the things you were doing with Rich and Dickie, maybe touching on some of the physical stuff you found that was helpful, the hands and stuff that you found did work for these two particular athletes.
So I just want to jump back to like when Rich was saying about people, when Dickie was saying about people as a therapist not really being very confident. I remember some of my first few days at Invictus camps, I was very aware of the language that I was using, because I would find myself, like, I would say to patients, "Oh, come on, hop on the couch." Now, I was mortified when I said that, because obviously these two guys don't have a leg. But very quickly, I sort of checked myself and was like, then decided to have that discussion with them about, like, can I say this? Is this okay? Kind of, but having that confidence to say to them, is this okay? Like, can I do this? Takes a lot, but I think had I not have done that, I wouldn't potentially be able to treat them the way that I do now. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah, having that confidence and communication.
But yeah, definitely. And I think in terms of what you're saying about treatment wise, whilst Rich and Dickie have got the same injury, so sort of amputation, their percentage limb loss is very different, which means some of the things that I can do easily with Dickie, I can't do with Rich, and I have to adapt my treatments. And I try very sort of directly to treat them as individuals. I don't try and shoehorn them both into the same treatment or the same thing. I work with them in terms of what do they want? What do they want out of our session? And I'm very much led by them, and sort of go from there and use what I know, like from my training, my qualifications, and try and sort of give them a little bit of knowledge as well and impart some stuff onto them so that they can self-manage while they're away, because obviously they're away for a long period of time, and there might be things that crop up that they need to sort of sort themselves, basically.
Interesting. Can you think of any examples offhand? Not to put you on the spot, but what's some of the advice you've given them?
So like they were both sent, so we've got another session before they go away, and I'm going to go through sort of some basic sort of like first aid and taping sort of things with Rich, so that he can take them out and use them, sort of, obviously, touch wood, praying that none of this happens and that they don't need to use any of the knowledge that I give them. But for example, if they rolled an ankle, I'm going to teach them how to tape their one good ankle so that they can carry on with the trek. Things like hamstring stretches, working on glute piriformis for both of them, how to help each other sort of with hip releases on their prosthetic side, because the prosthetics that they're being given, if I'm right, correct if I'm wrong, boys, they are heavier than their normal ones. So it changes how they walk slightly. And obviously the terrain out there is very different to just walking on a flat pavement. So it's little sort of self-management things like that.
Brilliant. That answers Nikki's question there, who was asking about whether, you're teaching any hands-on techniques to help each other cope along the way. Brilliant. Jenny, what have you found helps and you've been doing, and maybe any advice you've given?
So Carla's been working with the lads a little bit more recently. I worked with them much more during Invictus, so it was a little longer ago. But yeah, I think that the top tips, similar to when we spoke about swimming, really, is you've got to treat everybody individually, and your communication has got to be on point, not just from what you're saying to them, but the questions that you're asking them about where they're finding the pain, and also be prepared that what you first try with them isn't necessarily going to be the solution, that you might have to come up with sort of several different approaches to the same initial problem, really, and also looking much further up the chain than potentially you would have done, and really thinking about your sling systems and sort of your muscle chains, really. I think that's, and as Carla says, the thing that's most important is that when somebody's going to play sport, the stress is put through their body for a slightly shorter period of time. These guys are going to have a different stress put through their body the whole time. So certainly educating them and giving them things for them to take away and do themselves really do make a big difference.
great. Great advice. Yeah, it's going to be a long game, isn't it? So yeah, in for the long haul. Rich and Dickie, what are some of the things which you're prepared for, and have you got any kind of tricks out your sleeve already of how to deal with it? What do you think you're going to have to do, and what have you got up your sleeve to deal with it? Yeah.
Ooh.
Or are you just got that kind of, it's going to be plain sailing, we're just going to walk, sleep, and then it'll be over?
I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, that's how we like it to go. But in reality, we know it's not going to. Going back to what Rich was saying about the socket, having a good fitting socket, we're at risk at sores. Even feeling the fatigue in the hamstrings and the quads. So this is where looking after each other, looking out for the signs of we know each other's gait. We know when the discomfort and the muscle aches are setting in. And working with our guides, it's taking those extra rest breaks. If I have to get an elbow into one of his glutes, to free it up or whatever, courtesy of the girls, tips they've taught us, then it's something we're going to do at the end of the day. We're trying to set a world record, and we've got to look after each other, and we'll use all the knowledge that both of them can impart on us.
Fantastic. And you, Rich, are you foreseeing any potential issues and how you're going to deal with it?
I mean, hopefully it's only an elbow in my glute, Dickie, and nothing more.
Definitely an 18. But, isn't it? Is this safe for kids? No, not this particular episode. YouTube, not at all.
We're not going to come back on.
I don't foresee anything drastic happening. I mean, we have got very expensive insurance because 90% of the route is inaccessible by road. So the only way out is going to be a heli. So if someone does roll an ankle, then guess what? You're not walking 200 k's to get out. So it'll be a helicopter evacuation. But we're bringing crutches with us. We've got like an iWalk frame. I don't know if you've heard of that. We've got an iWalk frame we're taking with us as well. And we've got our spare legs. So aside from dressings and Tiger Balm, and there's probably a swear word in your world, which I'm going to say, we're bringing a Theragun with us, which I appreciate is a bit controversial amongst therapists, but we're going to bring a little Theragun with us.
There's nothing wrong with that. What little machine that goes dun, 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 dun. That's fine, don't worry, it's not swearing. If you told me that in 2010, I would have got all cynical and funny about it. But hey, we've evolved since there. If it makes you feel better, hey, put it in there. It's like I've changed a lot since 10 years ago. Well,
even if it's a placebo effect.
I mean, but there's no placebo. Oh, I won't go down that road. If it makes you feel better, then it's perfect. It's there's things we can't explain. If you have Chinese medicine off a Chinese doctor, it'll work. If you go to somebody down in Kemptown in Brighton, it probably won't. So the context is really important. So yeah, now you take what works for you. Jesus, I hope you don't think that I was going to criticize that. That's great. No, brilliant. Go for it. And even have an Epsom salt bath if you want to along the way. If you believe that the Epsom goes into your body and absorbs it and kills toxins, that's great. That's fine. You go for it. You two would be so lucky to have a bath along the way. What am I talking about? It's not really that sort of thing.
Yeah, we've got 3 showers in 35 days.
Yeah. Lovely. Right. Well, look, it sounds like an amazing challenge. There's another question here from Nikki, which I'll read out. Assuming you haven't found any therapists crazy enough to be your traveling support team on the entire trek. Oh, no, that was it. Yeah. Have they taught you any hands and techniques? Well, we heard about, touching the glutes and that. We won't go down that road again. That's fine. Good question, Nikki. Right. Well, look, it is 3 minutes. Go on.
Matt, very quickly, Carla has been very kind in donating her time and hands with Dickie and I over the last couple of months, and we've got one more session to go. But actually, we had a session on Saturday, and Carla got right in there. And I said at the end of the session, if I was wealthy enough, I would have that every day, because she just made me feel so good in and out of my socket. It was wonderful. So thank you for that, Carla.
Very well.
Extremely grateful.
Okay, that's why she does it. Yeah. You can never thank a therapist enough. I love it. Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, look, guys, like I said, you're actually leaving. Originally, it was supposed to be in October, wasn't it? But I think you're leaving. Was it 5 weeks or something? You've got it booked for?
We're off in 4 weeks. Yeah, 4 weeks. We fly out on a month today. Yeah, 3rd of October, we set off.
How exciting. So, yeah, we really want to see some people getting engaged and following on the trek. To what extent will people be able to follow you with updates and that sort of stuff? You're not going to have Are you going to have like a GPS signal on you, which people can follow and see where you are? Or
unfortunately, budget restraints. Trying to pull in enough sponsors to reach our financial goal was a little bit of a struggle. But there are some unbelievable remote areas where they don't even have electric.
Right.
So the little areas where you do get pockets of signal, we will be getting our guides out, and ourselves to do little updates via our Instagram.
Fantastic.
And hopefully on our website. And yeah, hopefully people might be able to track us along some of the way. But we've got to bear in mind, this is the very remote Himalayas. There are no phone masts nearby. To be honest, probably got better signal than we got in Norwich. So
no dig at Norwich, but that's great. So yeah, the Instagram, that's the best place for people to follow you, which is, I'll put it in the show notes as well, but at _Limb-itless, which is LIMBITLESS _expedition. That's correct, isn't it? That's the best place.
correct.
But hey, that might be huge for you. Imagine if you are suffering and it's like, oh, feeling down, and then suddenly you do get this moment of signal where you look at countless messages of support on Instagram. That could have a huge impact on you, couldn't it? Psychologically think, come on, we can do this, and pick you up.
Yeah, we know there's going to be low days. The tiredness, the missing home is going to really kick in. So any support that people can give, whether that's donating to the charity, spurring us on, just sharing the journey to inspire others, that'll mean everything to us.
Fantastic. You heard it, people. And I do encourage listeners to the podcast to go and check out, again, on the Just Giving pages, it tells you in detail what the expedition involves and gives you a little history and talks about the charities, 𝐵LESMA, and also Royal 𝐵LESMA and the British Legion, both fantastic charities. So yeah, do go, people, and please go and pledge a little bit. It'd be great. Put some money on there, especially, like I say, on Dickie, who's looking a little bit less. I don't know why that is. What's that about? It's not a popularity contest, obviously, but yeah, it's not getting you down as a Dickie, the fact that you're about.
No. Do you know what? Rich has got some really, really great contacts. He's got some, he knows quite a few people who have been very generous. But come on, a few more towards RBL would be nice as well.
Exactly. It'd be nice to balance them out and then just bring them up together. Yeah. Gary Benson says, good luck, gents. I'll be keeping up to date as much as we can. Carla can post any updates in our groups. That's true. That's a great point as well. We'll be following you with great excitement. And hey, I'd love the thought of you actually getting a signal and seeing the support you've got out there. So amazing. Right. It is 9 o'clock, people. So those of you who joined us in the live lounge, thank you very much. It makes all the difference to have people joining us live. It doesn't have to be many of you. Once upon a time, it was loads. Now it's a select few, but the feedback we get is we like it being recorded live, even when there's like kind of technical difficulties at the beginning. So thank you. If you listen to the podcast, and again, thank you very much. What you can do, podcast listener, all kind of like 2,100 of you, then do please leave a review or rating on Google, on Apple Podcasts would be great. We've got about less than 50, and yet there's like 2,500 downloads. So something isn't working with the math. Okay, just please, especially on an iPhone, it takes you a second. If you're on Android, it's a little bit more complicated. You have to do various leaps and jumps and things, but iPhone users, do please, if you enjoy this and you listen regularly and you are one of the downloaders, then leave us a rating, a 5. Make it simple. It'd be great. Right, next week, talking of joining us live, next week on September the 10th, we're going to be going back to talk about Therapy Expo in episode 212, Exercise Prescription, Why Communication Matters, with special guests Andrew McCauley and Andy Hosgood. Like I say, both Andrew and Andy have got presentations in the STA Theatre at Therapy Expo this coming November 27th and 28th. So it'll be a great chance to listen to them, what they're about, and maybe make some decisions as to whether you're going to come to the STA Theatre to hear both of their presentations. Until then, take care all. Hopefully see some of you for the live recording next Tuesday, 8 o'clock on the Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel. Once again, thank you to our guests, Carla and Rich and Dickie and Jenny. Thanks for giving up your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure. I'm so looking forward to hearing about all the success stories in about 7 weeks' time or something.
See what we do.
Touching wood, everyone. I'm like Dickie here, touching wood. There we go.
My hands are up.
What a great note to end on. Thanks, people. Take care of each other. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.